Has Rupert Lowe now been found guilty of bullying and harassment against his colleagues in his office? Let's take a look, shall we? So, we've just had this statement come out from Reform today about the Rupert Lowe allegations. We found out that the KC who was appointed to investigate the supposed allegations against Rupert Lowe that ultimately led to him being kicked out of the party, she's now completed her investigation, and we've had this pretty damning statement come out with a summary of that report. Let's take a look. So the statement from Reform says, following complaints received from two women about the conduct of Mr. Lowe and members of his male staff, Reform UK appointed an independent KC to investigate the matter. Her report is now complete. In summary, 1. The Independent King's Council has found there to be credible evidence of unlawful harassment of two women by both Mr. Lowe and male members of his team. 2. Contrary to Mr. Lowe's public statements, one of the women's allegations were made against Mr. Lowe himself. You guys may have remembered there was a lot of confusion as to whether the allegations even had anything to do with Rupert Lowe. We had some, I'd say slightly confusing mixed messages coming out of his tweets as to whether they had anything to do with him. 3. One of the women received threats that Mr. Lowe would take legal action against her if she cooperated with the investigation. Pretty damning statement there. 4. Both women gave their statements to the KC as sworn statements under penalty or perjury. Mr. Lowe has refused to do the same. Again, pretty damning of Rupert Lowe. Both women lodged formal complaints with the ICGS in January. Reform UK will cooperate fully with their investigation. In the interest of transparency, we publish the full report here. I will not go through the entire report with you, but let's just take a look at the conclusion, the beginning of the conclusion of the KC. There is veracity in the complaints from both women, which amounts to credible evidence, to use Mr. Lowe's own words, and these complaints of victimization, constant criticisms, discriminatory behaviour do seem to amount to harassment on the part of Mr. Lowe and his constituency team. Mr. Lowe seems to have failed or been unwilling to address the very real concerns of his own parliamentary secretary, as well as failing to address the alleged toxic conduct of both Whedon and Harrison when this came before him. So shocking stuff here, and let's take a look at that last paragraph. At the very least, Mr. Lowe should have taken seriously the distress and concern of a seasoned parliamentary employee and of both women. If he felt that either did fall short of what was expected of them by him or his senior staff, then a careful and full meeting to discuss, by way of appraisal, what may have gone wrong and how it could be improved could have been undertaken before immediate disciplinary action was sought. This contrasts with a failure to take action or indeed investigate complaints against two men in the constituency office and against Mr. Harrison, who formed part of the team. So pretty shocking stuff there. Makes Rupert Lowe look pretty guilty and look like he's been telling fibs on Twitter, to be honest. But then Rupert Lowe, he has come straight back at this with a report of his own, and he has gone through in great detail. I'm not even going to show you all of it because it is so long, the amount of detail that he has gone into to dismiss every single point that has been made of him. And I don't know who to believe, but Ben Habib also has come out in favor of Rupert Lowe, saying this is garbage from Reform, Nigel and Zia using lawfare against one of their best MPs. Disgusting, says Ben Habib. And let's have a look at what Rupert had to say, and then you guys can make up your minds about which side you are on. So he's done this report of his own. He says, one of the primary complainants, to give you an idea of the veracity of the allegations, following a conversation about a standard constituent issue, an email with contact details one of the complainants was expecting was forwarded to her from a colleague with no subject line or context. She felt this was an incident of rudeness and undermining. Apparently the unspoken subtext of the blank email was, "Look what you have done." Okay. The other complainant talks of micromanaging from a colleague who raised legitimate issues about her work maybe 2 or 3 times in 6 months, not even working from the same geographical location. Both complainants only raised these allegations once the disciplinary process had started against them for multiple serious offences. Now that makes the situation sound a little bit fishier and makes it sound like maybe these supposed complaints against Rupert Lowe on his team didn't really, have much substance to them. Is this just some, young Gen Z girl complaining that someone didn't put a subject line in their email? I don't know. Or has Rupert Lowe picked out, some sort of subparts of the complaints which were not that important, but actually he has missed out the elephant in the room and there are much more serious complaints against him and his team that he's decided to leave out of his tweets? I don't know. You guys make up your mind for yourself. I'm just showing you what he's put up. As I said, I won't show you his full report, but let's have a little look. So he talks a bit about, Farage using this as to make a political move, talking about the timing of the investigation and all not. But we all know what's happened there, and we all know that this had some sort of political agenda to it. The question is, were the claims against Rupert Lowe and his team, did they have any credibility to them, or were these kind of made up and blown out of proportion simply to suit Nigel's political end? So let's have a look at the issues with the staff. So he says, reform is shamefully attacking my innocent staff to smear my name. This is not right. It's unprecedented in modern British politics. Extensive evidence of this is being presented to the parliamentary authorities and my own legal teams. Both of these complainants admitted to serious offences, and both only raised any issues once the disciplinary process had started. Both then went on to admit other serious offences. I treat taxpayer money with respect. That means staff who commit such unacceptable actions must be held accountable with disciplinary action. I do not know what those serious offences are. We've heard him say serious offences when referring to these employees several times, but we don't know exactly what that is. Or at least I don't. If you've seen it somewhere, more detail on that, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, into the detail of the supposed bullying, he says there's no evidence of any bullying because there was none. Now that clearly goes against what the KC is saying in the report, where she suggests there is credible evidence. No bullying, no aggressive behaviour, no violent threats. There are outright lies. Unsurprisingly, these have gone unchallenged and accepted as fact, even with zero evidence by the reform investigation. So is this a case that the KC has based, credible evidence on simply witness statements? When conversations are not recorded and they're not in writing, a witness statement is often all you can go along with, right? That's all you've got to deal with. And you can make up outright lies in a witness statement, right? Now, that may be considered credible if another girl in the office says, oh yeah, what that girl is saying is completely right. Then that means you can maybe use that as credible evidence, but yet you still don't have anything on paper, in writing, on CCTV or anything. So it's probably going to be quite hard to prove whether this is true or not. Anyway, he says the statement published by Reform was designed to make it look like I was accused and guilty of all these things. It's simply false and incredibly libelous. There will be more news on this soon, but let's look at some of their claims. One individual's primary complaints was that she was forwarded an email she was expecting with information from a colleague on 8th of January with no greeting following a separate conversation about the case. She felt unspoken subtext of the blank email was, look what you have done. This was apparently an incident of rudeness and undermining, which we were just looking at previously. But what about the other girl? Another incident of rudeness was on 15th of January when she, so it looks like we're talking about the same person here, asked somebody to move information from WhatsApp to an email. A colleague said to her, easier if you do it, as it was her responsibility. She said it was an insult to her intelligence that she was asked not to disclose confidential information to individuals outside the office. She complained that more experienced members of the team conducted regular reviews of her casework with constituents and brought up issues. You're being held to account for when you're doing your job and people are checking that you're doing a good job. Oh my god, how shocking, how evil, what a load of bullying. What the stuff that Rupert is dealing here all sounds pretty mild and sounds completely normal, and I would encourage employers to actually look at the work of their employees and give them constructive criticism, right? So all of this sounds okay, but we do not know if there is more to it than he is allowing us to see here. So he says that he supports the checking of work and that it's important to him. He then says part of her evidence was imagining what was said between two other colleagues. I can only wonder at what they might have been exchanging. This is not evidence. Go back to my point about what I said about witness statements and whatnot earlier. It's going to be hard, I expect, for most of these allegations to actually produce any concrete evidence, given a lot of it will have been spoken conversations that are not recorded anywhere. This individual was allowed to change her sacking for gross misconduct to a resignation, as I was concerned about her and did not want to cause further damage to her reputation, as she was also removed from her previous job prior to working for me over gross misconduct. So that tells you a little bit about the character of the individuals involved. If someone has committed gross misconduct in her previous job and this job, is this the kind of person that we can trust the witness statements of? I don't know. Sounds like we should take what she says with a pinch of salt to me, given that is the case. But anyway, that is the latest update on the Rupert Lowe saga. Of course, we will bring you any more updates if we get any more evidence about this. Maybe we'll never know the full truth of it, but that is where we are at. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm Chloe Dobbs. Subscribe to the channel.